Welcome back to Midnight Movie Club and my review of Fear Street Part 1, 1994. Fear Street is a free movie event that is taking place over on Netflix, and it kicked off this past week with Part 1 that is set in 1994. Basically, it goes as follows. After a series of brutal slayings, a teen and her friends take on an evil force that's plagued their notorious town for centuries. The film was directed and co-wrote by Lee Janiak, who also wrote alongside Phil Grizzady. I don't know if I'm saying that right, I hope I am, sorry if I butchered your name, mate, but let's get on to the review, and I'll just say, what the fuck? This movie was pish. It was utter garbage. I was honestly really looking forward to this one. Thought all the trailers for every part looked great. It just looked like, a grown-up Goosebumps, a grown-up Stranger Things, R-rated kind of Stranger Things vibes mixed with Goosebumps and, a Scream kind of aesthetic. But no, apart from the nostalgia, the soundtrack and the gore, at the very end, the gore does take a while to come. Apart from that, it's pretty bang average and even just below average, to be honest. The acting isn't so great across the board. In places it's not too bad, in other places it's very wooden, very forced, and I think that really does come down to the dialogue. The dialogue is very cringy. It honestly felt like a Riverdale Halloween special, and that's saying something. This has come from a guy who's watched 2 whole seasons of Riverdale. I know, don't crucify me. I've dealt with things like the Goblin King, and this was right up there. And it really left me scratching my head at who the target market for this was. I really don't know who they were going for, because the nostalgia didn't do it for me. Some scenes were just like straight up rip-offs of like Scream, Friday the 13th, stuff like that. And that's okay, it's cool to rip things off, and it was nice to get those little moments. The opening of the film is actually really well done. And, after the opening credits, I was like, here, we could be really onto a winner. This is setting up to be very nice. But then from a very strong opening, it's just all very downhill. They also try to reference like 70s and 80s horror movies, and it just really doesn't work. Stranger Things does it perfectly, but here they just ham-fist them straight into the dialogue, just where they're not needed at all. And it just really felt like when they were writing this, the writers had just learned how to swear, and they were just overusing usual swear words when they were just really not necessary. And I get it, it's a group of like angsty teens, but some of them were a bit older, and it just seems like they shouldn't have been talking like that. I don't know, that's just for me personally. I grew up in the UK in Australia, so maybe it's different. I don't know if it's different over in the US how people talk, but to me they just talked like they were a bit young for their age, and it was really annoying and just came across super cringe. And one other thing that really annoyed me was just the weird rules for the supernatural side to this villain. Some of the rules just felt like they were getting made up as it went along, and things would just conveniently turn out like this, or they'll conveniently turn out like that, or this person just happens to be here now, or this street's deserted now. Everything just felt deliberate to help the plot. And yeah, it wasn't good. This town is like deserted for no reason apart from the characters we're following, and you could just sprinkle in a few extras here or there to make the place feel more lived in, but it just really did feel like they were on a movie set, and just too many things were far too convenient. And a lot of the movie, especially in the first half, just feels like the protagonists breeze through it and there's really no trouble at all. The first half of the movie as well is really bad pace-wise. It's all over the place, and conversations as well just jump to and fro. Like, the topic changes so quickly, and I don't think it was the editor's fault. It's just the way it was written, and it just felt like it was jumping all over the place and couldn't focus on one thing at a time. It really felt like it had ADHD, the movie, and it was just very janky, and so many things were popping out of place. Just very weird. and the world just seeming empty unless it didn't need to be for convenience was just one of those things that annoys you and you can't really overlook. In saying all this though, it does have a great banging soundtrack, but even the soundtrack sounds like it's got ADHD. Songs are chopping and changing every 2 seconds. You know, I just wanted to focus on one thing for 1 minute and one song for 1 minute, but no, it just doesn't give you a second to breathe. But then all of a sudden it stalls and just stops halfway through the movie and then goes rapid again right at the end, and things are just like smudged over. It was really annoying. The pace was all over the place. The nostalgia for the 90s slashers was nice, but as I said, just not enough to win me over for this film. One other thing I really did like though was the lighting. It was great most of the time. I really liked this whole neon aesthetic that they had to the mall and stuff like that, and I really do wish that they used more of those environments more, rather than kind of drabbed, washed out ones that we got where we were just used to those teals and oranges. I really do think that they should have stuck with that pure neon drenched look, because that's when it looked its coolest and nicest visually. The cinematography as a whole is pretty nice, it's not bad, but as I said, with the way it jumps about, you don't really get too long with any takes. It's constantly cutting and stuff like that, so you don't really get any time to like suck things in. But when it does come to the kills, the few really good kills that we do get, because there are a few really good kills right at the end, you know, you see them in all their glory, focuses right on them, doesn't hide anything. That's brilliant. I just wanted more of that. And if the story and the plot itself were better, I didn't really care. I didn't really like any of the characters, bar one maybe. It didn't make me care. And the score itself, not the soundtrack, like, you know, the licensed songs they used, but the score that was obviously written for this, it was fine. It was nice and spooky. It had that kind of goosebumpy Halloween vibe to it, very nice. But my God, was it overused, and by God did it tell you what to feel, when to feel it. And any time, like, you know, a creature or somebody ran behind someone in the background, it always went dun and made that jump scare noise. It just wasn't scary at all, and it was just very annoying, very in your face. Everything was just bang on the nose, and yeah, not good. At the end as well, we do see a little bit of part 2, and part 2 looks really cool, but I have to ask, why should we care? Why should we care about part 2 now that we know who survives? We know who the lone survivor of part 2 is, so why should we bother watching it? Honestly, like, it feels redundant now. They should probably started in the past and worked their way up to this one. I don't know. Hopefully it's better than part 1, because part 2 does look really cool, and I'm still keen for part 3. Hopefully they get better as they go. This one for me was very poor in my opinion, but that is just my opinion, so if you enjoyed it, let me know in the comments down below. But if you're like me and you hated it as well, let me know in the comments down below too. Really, the only positives for this one for me were the strong body violent moments of gore, the soundtrack, and some of the general aesthetics as well. But everything else for me was just very disposable, very paint by numbers, and sometimes below average. So yeah, for me, I'm going to have to give this one a 2 out of 5 rating. Really hope part 2 is better, part 3 as well. But as I said, let me know what you made of it in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this review, please do leave it a like. Also, if this is your first time here on the channel, then subscribe to join the club. As always, thank you very much for watching, and good night.